Hi everybody and welcome to Out of the Gate, Daily Racing Form's weekend handicapping preview program. I'm Dan Illman. Thanks so much for watching. Here's what's coming up in this week's edition of Out of the Gate. Daily Racing Form handicapper Matt Bernier and I will take a look at 3 stakes races: the Sunshine Millions Classic from Gulfstream Park, the La Cienega Stakes from Santa Anita, and the Pasco Stakes from Tampa Bay Downs. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick play will also focus on the Pasco, while JK's play of the day at Tampa Bay, it's a pick 3. David Aragona's TimeformUS Spotlight, Aqueduct's Saturday, race number 4. We've got tournament talk, best bets, horses to watch, and lots more. So let's break Out of the Gate. We begin Out of the Gate with our Horse Watch segment. Matt Bernier, you found a filly that was super impressive off the layoff.
Selcourt was really impressive, winning the Kalukan Queen most recently this past week, and we're going to take a look at that replay right now. Keep in mind, this was her first start in how many months? We hadn't seen her since May of 2017. Her first start as a 4-year-old. You see she's already on the front end. Look at the fractions, 21 and 3, 44 and a piece, and she just draws off. Very visually impressive. The interesting thing for me, and the reason I said this, I don't really have a lot to offer other than I was really impressed by the effort at 95 buyer. This to me is a division that has just been screaming out for someone to take ownership for probably the better part of the past year and a half or 2 years. Maybe if she can stay sound, and again, it remains to be seen. She started 4 times in about 2.5 years, but if she can stay sound, maybe she's the one that just kind of inherits this thing and becomes the boss in Southern California.
I think she's reaching her peak potential physically. She came off that layoff. She was always fast. She was always talented. It's up to the connections to keep her sound, because a sound Selcourt is very dangerous in these graded stakes races in Southern California. My horse watch, probably not ready for graded stakes, but he's getting good, and I think he deserves a shot in a black type opportunity coming up. Let's go back to last Saturday at Aqueduct. Yes, it's a wet track, but here's Pioneer Spirit just dominating an optional claiming field to the tune of a 101 buyer speed figure. This is a son of Malibu Moon. He sold for $380,000 as a yearling, and he underachieved for both Jason Service and Linda Rice before being claimed 4 starts back for $35,000 for Brad Cox. And as you can see by this finish, he has found himself. He is capable on dirt. He is capable on turf. His best distance is a mile. Now, it's coming back pretty quick, but in a couple of weeks, they're going to run the toboggan at Aqueduct at 7 furlongs. He'd fit in that spot, but I think a really good spot for this horse to make his stakes debut would be at the Big A on the Gotham undercard in the Stymie, going a 1-turn mile. Might be a nice spot. Keep an eye out for Pioneer Spirit, coming off a 101 buyer speed figure at the Big A. Let's get to some handicapping with the Sunshine Millions Classic. Let's take a look at the field for the Sunshine Millions Classic, race number 4 at Gulfstream Park on Saturday. For expanded stakes previews of most of the major stakes races all weekend long, head on over to video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. Matt, the number 5, Mr. Jordan, 6-5 on the morning line. Understandably so. He's run some fast races, but as you and I detailed in the stakes preview, he is far from a slam dunk.
Yeah, and I think it really comes down to one thing and one thing only: the distance. Is the distance going to be the thing that does him in? Because it seems like he's done his best work at a mile and a 16th. Now he stretches out. I know it sounds insignificant, a 16th of a mile. My goodness, if anything prior has been an indication about the ability to get out to 9, he might be in deep trouble.
Never won at a mile and an 1/8. Never won at Gulfstream Park. He's the king of Gulfstream West. He almost got it done last time. And we're going to take a look at the Harlan's Holiday, and he is the big gray on the lead, and he's getting tired at a mile and a 16th. He did do a lot of work early.
And that's the thing. I mean, you in many ways could make the case that this was the best race of his career. You see him drifting out a little bit. That's obviously always a sign of a horse that's tired, feeling the effects. You see the fractions. They went legitimate early on. I think it was a big effort. The concern is, he's probably going to have a little bit of company early on in this spot as well. Is he going to be able to hang around for that extra 16th of a mile?
Jay's Way, Richard the Great, they both have early speed that could push Mr. Jordan and perhaps compromise him at a mile and an 1/8. There's one thing we can say about your horse. He loves the distance.
Catholic Cowboy, his form recently for Nick Zito is, let's say, suspect at best. But I think he is the only true horse in this race that wants every bit of the distance. And we're going to go back to one of his most recent wins. This was a long time ago, 2016. This is the Old Hickory, and you see him out here now. It's going to take a little while for him to change leads, but once he finally does, he goes on with it. I think ultimately this is about the distance. It's not so much that I love Catholic Cowboy. It's just that I think he's going to be able to handle a mile and an eighth a little bit better than some of the other speed horses. There should be plenty signed on early for him to run at from the back of the pack. We'll take a shot at a decent number with Nick Zito here in Catholic Cowboy.
I'll take a chance with a horse that's finished behind Mr. Jordan in his last 2 races, and that's Richard the Great. We're going to go back to his most recent victory. That's the 7-furlong Trinniberg Stakes at Gulfstream Park, and in this race he just went to the lead and dominated over a speed-favoring track. You'll notice in this race a little bit late to change leads, still a little bit uncomfortable with his mechanics, but in his last start, a race that we saw against Mr. Jordan where he finished 3rd, he was a lot more comfortable. The mile and an eighth, that's a major question for this horse who is adding blinkers for the first time, but I think that Jay's Way and Mr. Jordan are going to set the pace, and this horse will be sitting. He's been a lot more relaxed in his last few races in 3rd, getting the jump on Catholic Cowboy, turning into the stretch. I'll take a small stab with Richard the Great. His morning line price, though, is a bit too short, 5-2. I would need 7-2 before I play him to win. Nicole Russo's pedigree pick segment focusing on 3-year-olds at Tampa Bay Downs. Let's go to her segment in the Pasco, followed by Peter Thomas Fornatel's always informative Tourney Talk.
Hi guys, Nicole Russo coming to you from Lexington, Kentucky for Out of the Gate. And this week I'm going to take a look at the pedigrees of some of the runners in the Pasco Stakes for 3-year-olds going 7 furlongs Saturday at Tampa. This is a wide open race where I think the favorites might be vulnerable on paper. A Rousey-like move and Twin Farms will probably get some attention on the board coming off a 2nd and 3rd respectively in the inaugural stakes here at Tampa, part of this series, but both were pretty well beaten. Twin Farms, I think, is vulnerable because he really wants to be up on the pace and will probably have some other speed to contend with. A Rousey-like move's only other win came in a maiden claimer last summer. Also among the favorites will be He Hate Me, down on the inside, making his first start since winning the Tremont last June. He might be fresh off his layoff and will need to use his speed down on that inside. He's going beyond 5.5 furlongs for the first time to 7. That's a question mark. So if these 3 are short prices, maybe look past them and try to answer some of the questions about the rest of the field. Awaken has won around 2 turns, that being against the best of his fellow Ohio breds in the state's juvenile on its showcase program last fall. He is stakes placed against Open Company at a mile in the Sapling Stakes behind Ball Harbor. This horse has a lot of class. He's by Kentucky Derby winner Super Saver, a sire of a pair of Grade 1 winners at this 7 furlong distance in Champion Run Happy and the Juvenile Competitive Edge. He's also sired some horses who go longer, like Alabama winner Embellish the Lace. So I'm not concerned about the 7 furlongs for Awaken, especially with some depth in his female family. You see Grade 1 winners Any Given Saturday, Money Honey, and several other middle distance and route horses there. This should be in his wheelhouse if he can step up nicely again against Open Company, and wide open Open Company at that. World of Trouble, another in this field with stakes experience, ran the field's best buyer in this Stallion Stakes placing against his fellow Florida breds last fall. Winner came back to take his subsequent outing. Distance is the question for him. He's by the unbeaten juvenile Cantheros, who made all his starts sprinting, but who moved in such an effortless way that I believed he could have gone longer. Cantheros, the sire of graded winning sprinters XY Jet and Buchero, but also Mr. Jordan, who can stretch out his natural speed, an ancient secret, a graded winner routing on turf. Sire's only half the equation, though. World of Trouble's Dam, a half-sister to Buchero, so this one being bred on the same cross leads me to believe he will be more effective at shorter distances. 7 furlongs, kind of an elongated sprint, and World of Trouble does have the class if you think he can get it. And lastly, Driven by History is another actually cutting back to 7 furlongs after already winning multiple races at a mile. He's never been worse than 2nd on his career, but he's venturing away from Presque Isle Downs and its synthetic surface for the first time. Sire Two-Step Salsa won the Godolphin Mile on dirt and was a multiple graded winner on synthetic. I do see some more dirt ability in the rest of the family. Two-Step Salsa's best runners include Dance with Fate, best known for winning the Bluegrass on synthetic, but also Grade 1 placed on dirt, and Conquest Two-Step, a Grade 2 winner and Grade 1 placed also on dirt. Driven by History's Damn, Mama Nina won on dirt and is half to a stakes-winning dirt sprinter in Mr. Maestre. Just some notes for you to consider in this wide-open race on Saturday. Good luck with it. And now let's get you over to Peter Thomas Fornatale for some tournament talk.
Hey everybody, Peter Thomas Fornatale back with you on Out of the Gate. Very excited to announce that entries I really should say, for the World Championship of Handicapping are now on sale. Since the contest was announced last spring, we've been running feeders and qualifiers every operating day on DRF tournaments. Now you can go ahead and buy in. The entries are 5,000 up to 3 per person. But keep in mind, this is a tournament with no takeout. It is the best opportunity in the history of online contests. A large purse being expected here. Based on full participation of 200, the purse would be $1 million. We've already qualified in over 60 entries. We expect that number to settle in somewhere in the low 70s. From there, it's just a question of how many people buy in. I've talked to a lot of different people, a lot of different estimates, some even thinking it could sell out. So don't delay. Buy your entry for the World Championship of Handicapping today. We have a nice little on-screen graphic. We can show you exactly how to do that through the DRF store. Go to the URL and buy your entry today. Of course, if you're not looking to buy in but still want to win in, lots of opportunities still. We have a Grade 1 qualifier this weekend, $580, 1 in 10 entries advance. You can win into that for as little as $11 in feeders. Start your journey. In some instances, even with free games for the World Championship of Handicapping. This is the second to last weekend. Next weekend will be, or next week really, will be full of last chance opportunities. Might even be special Grade 1 qualifiers as early in the week as Wednesday. I do know that on Friday of next week, going to have a very special last chance all-in qualifier with a lower price point. The ratio won't be quite as good as that 1 to 10, but you'll be able to participate for $225 and win in directly to this potential $1 million no takeout World Championship of Handicapping. We're also going to have a special edition of the DRF Players podcast broadcast with live video on Friday afternoon that will coincide with the start of that last chance qualifier. Should be a lot of fun. Looking forward to covering everything having to do with the WCH. If folks have questions, you can reach out to me at Looms Boldly. I have an article on drf.com right now detailing the format of exactly how it's going to work. Read up on it and feel free to ask me questions. You can also hit me up with longer questions at podcast@drf.com. Looking forward to seeing your name on the leaderboard of the World Championship of Handicapping. That's all I got for this week. I'm Peter Thomas Fornatale. Stay tuned for more Out of the Gate.
You asked, we listened. DRF Plus has more flexible subscription options. Use DRF Plus Basic for exclusive news and analysis, including our DRF Live real-time news feed. Or go deeper with DRF Pro and unlock buyers, closer looks, picks, and reports, including the DRF Daily Game Plan. DRF TV viewers get 50% off the plan of your choice. Use code DRFTV50 at checkout. Learn more about the DRF Plus subscription plans at drf.com/plus.
Welcome back to Out of the Gate. Let's take a look at the field for the Saturday DRF Bets Race of the day. It's the $125,000 Pasco Stakes for 3-year-olds going 7 furlongs. For expanded stakes previews of many of the major stakes races all weekend long, visit video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. And for free formulator pass performances of the Pasco, head on over to the Race of the Day event page on drf.com. The One He Hate Me, the 7 World of Trouble. Matt, these horses expected to take the lion's share of the wagering action. They're both coming off layoffs. Let's start with World of Trouble. He's run fast.
He's run very fast. He has the highest out buyer speed figure in the field with an 88. That came down at Gulfstream Park across the state. Look, he makes a lot of sense. He figures to be forwardly placed throughout. I suppose if there is any knock, maybe the Hurricane threw off his training a little bit. He hasn't had a lot of published works, and now he comes into a 7/8 mile race, and he's going to have to deal with a little bit of other speed early on.
Let's go back to his most recent start, an 88 buyer effort. He is on the lead. He's had to do a lot of work through some quick fractions, and you see him hanging on his left lead. And eventually the jock's going to get him the change, and once he does, he bangs off that inner rail. You'd think that that would cost him all chance, but he still fights when this sharp horse on the outside comes and tackles him inside the 8th pole. This was a good effort from World of Trouble, but as you mentioned, the hurricane, the weather wreaked havoc with his training. He hasn't been able to get a prep race in for the Pasco, and you have to wonder, maybe the Pasco's a prep for something else, maybe the Sam Davis.
Yeah, certainly. And you know what? I suppose you can also take another look at that run and say that's the definition of winning the battle and losing the war, because he went out there and he put the other speeds away, and he just got run down late. The whole thing with the lead change and bouncing off the rail, certainly not what you want to see. You'd like things to be a little bit more like clockwork and more professional, and like you say, maybe this is nothing more than a means to an end to get ready for something bigger and better.
He's 2-1 on the morning line. We want prices in this race. You're taking a shot on a horse trying dirt for the first time, but you know something? He's real good on the synth, and if he transfers that form, you'll hear from him in this spot.
Yeah, the number 5 is driven by history, and I don't know what we're going to get out of him, if I'm being honest with you, but I'm going to go back to that most recent start of his, and this was at Pasco Downs over a synthetic racetrack, and you're going to see right now, it's going to take him a long time to change leads. He's on the outside. He's going to get Lasix for the first time on Saturday. He's still hanging on that left lead. The thing to really keep in mind and watch late as they get closer to the wire, he's going to make some sort of a very awkward step. This is 2 starts in a row where it seems like he either jumped tracks or he's jumped shadows, whatever it may have been. It's not something that you love to see. I just kind of like the fact that as a 2-year-old, he ran so frequently, so often, without any real breaks. 7 times he's gone out, 7 times he's been in the exacta, 4 of them victories. I like the fact that he's, I don't want to say he's full-blown professional, but I like the fact that he just goes out there and does his job. We'll find out if he can handle the dirt. He's going to be a big price in here. Going to need some pace up front, but I'll take a shot with him.
I'm going to go with the number 9 in here. That's Twin Farms, a horse coming out of the prep for the Pasco. That's the inaugural stakes. And if you watch the stakes preview on drf.com, you'll notice the TimeformUS pace projector has Twin Farms right there out on the lead with the number 7 World of Trouble. And I think that's how it's going to play out on the track. We're going to take a look at the inaugural, and as they turn into the stretch, the horse on the lead, the odds-on favorite, and a very impressive horse in his own right, is running away from Twin Farms. But before we picked up the video, Twin Farms made a good strong bid at that horse before flattening out. He tried to win the race, and in doing so, I think it cost him second. I think he gets a similar situation this time out. And while I respect World of Trouble, I don't think he's as good as the horse that we just saw winning the inaugural. Plus, he's coming off a little bit of a layoff. If Twin Farms can sustain that bid with the recency advantage, I think he has a chance to pull off a little bit of an upset at 8-1. From 3-year-olds on the dirt to some fillies and mares on the turf at Santa Anita, we're going to take a look at the Las Ciénegas up next. Downhill sprinters take center stage in the feature race at Santa Anita on Saturday, the Grade 3 Las Ciénegas Stakes. Let's take a look at this field. Pretty wide open race. You get your expanded stakes preview on video.drf.com or the Daily Racing Form YouTube channel. We've got 9 expected to compete, Matt. And the morning line favorite, the number 2 Bendable, 5-2 on the line, has never run on turf.
Yeah, this is just not my kind of favorite on the morning line, not my kind of favorite come post time. I don't really care what her price ultimately is. She goes out for obviously high-profile connections. You get Richard Mandela, you get Mike Smith. But as far as the pedigree is concerned, I guess there's a little bit of turf in there, but really in the grand scheme of things, to me, this is more throwing your hands up saying, she's not as good as we had hoped she would be on dirt, so let's try something different.
Mixed bag from a turf pedigree. The Dam, who was multiple stakes placed on turf, has foaled 3 turf winners, 2 of them first turf winners, but the sire only 2 for 55 with first-time turf runners. Bendable pretty good on the main track. We're going to take a look at one of her victories victories on the dirt last year. You see her on the outside digging after this odds-on favorite. Pretty and cool. A horse that really never panned out, but Bendable is a horse with good tactical speed, and perhaps, just perhaps, they found the right surface for her.
It's entirely possible, and maybe the class is going to get her through this. I look at it, I see her flashing her tail, and I know Pretty and Cool is a nice horse, but she's pretty and cool. It's one thing to run a horse like that down on a surface that you prefer. It's another thing to go and play someone else's game. And for the most part, these girls, their game is running on the turf, and some of them even going down the hill.
Always tough to take the favorite when she's doing something she's never done before. You're going with a horse that has done it before. And when I say done it, I mean go down the hill at 6.5. Anita Partner is a specialist.
Yeah, this is really what she wants to do, and I can understand anyone that's a little bit concerned maybe from a pace dynamic. Is she going to have too much to do? We're going to take a look at one of her most recent downhill efforts, and she finished behind Kanaya, who's also going to be in this spot. The big thing for me, you see her, she's all the way at the back of the pack right now, and she's going to come out into the center of the track, come on with a run. I thought, all things considered, it was a big effort. The concern is, again, is she going to get outrun a little bit early? You see those fractions posted. If they go 43, sure, she's going to be that far back. I have a sneaky feeling the pace isn't going to be quite as fast. If you can get a half mile in 44 and change, I think there's a scenario where Anita Partner only sits 2 or 3 lengths out of it, and if that's the case, I'll take my chances that she can outfinish everyone else.
If this race was at a mile or a mile and a 16th, I'd put a ring around Beau Recall without doing much handicapping. Her last start at a mile and a quarter, just a little bit too far, but she's been facing some really good 3-year-old fillies out in Southern California. The problem is she's cutting all the way back to 6.5 furlongs. We're going to take a look at Beau Recall finishing second at Del Mar earlier this year in the Del Mar Oaks, and this has kind of been Beau Recall, right? Just a heartbreaking loss to a horse that some might think is a bit inferior. That's the East Coast Invader Dream Dancing. Beau Recall has found ways to lose just about every time she's come to North America. She did win sprinting overseas. 6.5 is very sharp. It really comes down to a pace situation from Beau Recall. If she's outrun early, I don't think she's going to get those 42-second half mile to rally into. She might have to rally into a 44, which means she has to stay closer. But I'll trust Simon Callahan. I do believe that Beau Recall is getting the class relief she needs. I would take her at her 7-2 morning line price. JK's play of the day back at Tampa Bay Downs for a pick 3. David Aragona's TimeformUS Spotlight focuses on Aqueduct, race number 4. Let's hit those segments right now.
Hey everybody, welcome to JK's play of the day. We're going to go down to Tampa Bay Downs. Pick 3 starting in race 8, the Pasco Stakes. One of my favorite angles in racing is 2-year-olds who have strong figures coming back as 3-year-olds for their first start, where their 2-year-old figure was one that was probably good enough to win this race. There's a natural progression with 2-year-old horses as they turn into 3-year-olds and they get a little bit stronger, a little bit older, a little bit more mature. The 2 horses that I'm going to use in this spot, and I feel very comfortable getting out of this leg, are the one, He Hate Me, winner of the Tremont at Belmont this summer. Ran really well there, got a 98 time form figure. Expect that horse to improve. Gets Manny Franco, who I've talked about many times on the podcast as being one of my favorite young riders. I love Manny there. I love the rail. Should be forwardly placed with this type of horse. And then the 7, World of Trouble, switching to Jason Service. Obviously, a little bit of a trainer improvement with Kathleen O'Connell now to Service from a statistical standpoint. That horse ran a 105 at Gulfstream in September, forwardly placed. I think that horse is going to be tough in here as well. Going on to the 9th race, the second leg, I'm going to use 2 horses here. One of them I'd like to probably press up a little bit when I'm making my wagers, and that's the 2, Artistic Quality. We'll take a look at Artistic Quality's last race that was at Belmont, and you'll notice right here at the top of the stretch, the horse was a little bit in behind. It wasn't one of those standout trips where I think the world is going to notice that there was a little bit of trouble. It wasn't a ton of trouble, but it did take a while for the horse to get out. Once the horse did get out, for Jose Ortiz that time at Belmont, leveled off really well. I think that horse is got a chance to improve. And one of my only fears is just the pace. If it's going to be slow, this one's going to need a little bit to close into. But I think this one can stay close enough and quick and better than a majority of these. The other horse that I'll use a little bit more defensively is the 9, Samara. That horse is stretching out to the mile, been running 6 furlong races previously. Hasn't done a whole lot, but can be forwardly placed. Maybe this is the distance that one wants. Hard spun out of a Stormcat mare. I think that horse could be dangerous, sitting right off of the long shot 7 horse that predicts to be on the lead. Those are the 2 that I'll use there, the 2 and the 9. And then in race 10, I'm going to single the 2, Tappa. Horse is 2 for 2 at Tampa. Won a stake last year at Tampa. The allowance comeback off of a 147-day break was a big victory. Excuse me, not 140, a 218-day break with a 12-length lead, our win last time. I think that horse will be extremely tough in here, and so I'll single the 2 in the third leg of my pick 3. Good luck. We'll see you next week.
Hi, this is David Aragona of TimeformUS. I'm going to be talking about the 4th race at Aqueduct on Saturday this week. It's a $50,000 claimer for horses that have never won 3 races in their careers going a mile. The interesting thing about the condition of this race is you don't often see that many condition claiming races with this high of a claiming price. So you've got an interesting mix of horses. Some of them are dropping down out of allowance company. Some of them are moving up in class out of lower level claiming races. So interesting mix of horses and a really interesting field of 10 runners that's kind of hard to figure out who exactly is the favorite, who's the horse to beat. I think a good place to start in just kind of figuring out how to look at this race is with the pace, because if you look at the TimeformUS pace projector, this race is predicted to feature a fast pace. There are 3 key speed horses in this race who have all done their best running when they're racing on or near the lead. Those are the number 5 horse, Vilma, the number 8, Divine Dental, and the number 10, Karma Delight. Given that this race is projected to feature a pretty fast pace, a runner that I think is probably going to take a significant amount of money, and the one that I've made the morning line favorite, is Starship Zeus. If we look at the entire field for this race, it's easy to see, looking at the TimeformUS preview, when a race is projected to feature a fast pace, you can see that each horse is assigned a running style in this preview, with an early pace rating and a late pace rating to the left and the right of the running style. And when a race is projected to feature a fast pace, you can see which horses in the field have the highest late pace ratings. They're probably going to be the most benefited by the race dynamics. And you can easily see that Starship Zeus has by far the highest pace rating and late pace rating in this field. So he figures to be one that's making up a lot of ground in the stretch. If we take a look at Starship Zeus's PPs, a couple of things just jump out right away. On the left-hand side, you see a bunch of numbers to the right of the race dates. Those are the race ratings for the races that he's coming out of in his last 5 past performance lines. Now, the projected race rating for the race today is a 110. So you can see that in Starship Zeus's last 5 running lines, he's coming out of races where the race ratings for those races have been higher than 110, meaning that he's dropping in class today on some tougher spots. Also, on the right-hand side, you can see that Starship Zeus's recent speed figures are all, relatively high. They're around 110. They've been trending upwards. This is a horse that is in relatively good form right now. There are a lot of things to like about Starship Zeus. The one knock against him is that looking at his overall race record, he's just 2 for 36 in his career. So this is a horse that runs well quite often, but he rarely wins races. So at a short price, this is one that I think might be a little vulnerable. Definitely a horse to use in exactas and trifectas, but if I'm playing horses to win or trying to find out who I want to key on in this race, I'm going to bypass Starship Zeus and use him mostly underneath. Another short price horse that I think we have to discuss is Vilma. Linda Rice is having a fantastic Aqueduct meet, as she usually does. Her horses routinely get bet. Vilma has run plenty of speed figures that make him fast enough to win this race. A couple of knocks against Vilma, though, are he's one of the projected speed horses in this race, so the race flow might not suit him. And he's also coming off a significant layoff. And I think in situations like this, you want to look at a trainer's stats with this kind of move. And, I like to use TimeformUS PPs in combination with the DRF formulator. I think using the trainer ratings in TimeformUS is a great place to start if you're trying to decide which stats do I want to look up on a trainer, what does this trainer do well as opposed to not well against their overall stats. And just taking a look at this snapshot of Linda Rice's trainer ratings, you can see that while she gets an overall trainer rating of 95, meaning she's an excellent trainer, with today's specific move, horses coming off this kind of layoff in route races, she just gets a trainer rating of 47, which is much lower than her overall trainer rating of 95. So this is not one of Linda Rice's great moves, and I think this horse is a little vulnerable at a short price. Looking at some other contenders that are probably going to take money, Glenn Richmond for Rudy Rodriguez, the number 9 horse. He's coming out of a slightly weaker field at Laurel. I know he's a little bit lightly raced, so he has some upside, but at a relatively short price, he's one that I was also slightly against. The same goes for Karma Delight, the number 10 horse, another horse that's projected to be part of the pace in this race. He faced, tougher horses last time and he didn't run well, but 2 and 3 back, the races he's going to take money off of. He was, in relatively soft paces in those races. He's one that likes to race up close to the pace, so I think he's in a more difficult situation here. The horse that I ended up picking in this race, kind of through process of elimination, is Halloween Horror, the number 6 horse. Just taking a look at his last few running lines, there are some things to take note of. While he's had 11 starts in his career, only 4 of those races have come on the dirt. So I think he's one that has a bit more upside than it might appear at first glance. If we look at his last 3 dirt races and the horses he's faced in those races, he's been in some pretty tough fields. Going back to that August 13th race at Saratoga, Control Group, who beat him that day, came back and won the Grade 3 Discovery later in the year. In his last couple of dirt races, he faced Pioneer Spirit, who has come out of that race and run some much higher speed figures on the dirt. And last time, when they stepped him up into a non-winners of 1 allowance race, he faced 3 horses that would just be, solid favorites in this race: Flash Trading, Westwood, and Forest Blue. All really solid allowance horses that were just a little bit too tough for Halloween Horror to handle. Halloween Horror is a horse that is not a plotter like a Starship Zeus, but he figures to be racing somewhere in mid-pack, and I think he's going to sit the right kind of trip in this race. At a decent price, he's the one that I wanted to take on top. So it's Halloween Horror for me in the 4th race at Aqueduct on Saturday. Now we'll send it back to Dan in the studio.
Time for our best bet segment here on Out of the Gate. Matt, you've got something on the Sunshine Millions undercard.
Yeah, the opener at Gulfstream on Saturday, 7.5 furlongs on the turf. I'm going to go to CM Reap. That's the number 6 horse. We're going to take a look at the most recent start. This was in a beaten $50,000 claiming event. You see him right now. He's taken over the lead, but you got to take a look at those fractions in the TimeformUS color codings as far as the pace numbers. He was closest to just a ballistic pace. Solio comes over and takes him over, but I love the fight that this horse shows. He stays on, doesn't give it up. For what it's worth, 3 next out winners, including the 1st and 3rd place finishers, all between buyers of 80 and 86. This is a tough spot, admittedly. There are a lot of nice horses in here, but I think there's a scenario where he could work out another good trip. He is the longest price as far as the morning line is concerned at 12-1. I think he's going to be somewhere in that vicinity. He may be in a little bit too tough, but I think he's got a puncher's chance at what should be a very, very good number.
I'm going to go to Golden Gate Fields, race number 8, number 5, Talon's Prince, as my best bet. Now, Talon's Prince has been campaigning on the turf recently, but he is certainly capable on the Tapeta surface that he's going to face on Saturday. Let's go back to his most recent race on the turf, however, a race in which he finished ahead of 6 of these common foes, and he was 3 and 4 wide throughout and still punching on towards the end of this race. He's going to get a faster pace than what he faced in this turf race in the synthetic start on Saturday, and I think that's going to help Talon's Prince's punch. This is a horse that has finished second 10 times out of 40 in his career. Maybe he doesn't want to beat you, but I just think with the company he's facing, he's very comfortable. He gets a very comfortable pace situation as well. I think 4-1 would be a fair price on the number 5, Talon's Prince, who is 7-2 on the morning line. We invite you to follow DRF Video on Twitter for the latest DRF TV offerings. It's at DRF Video. And for the latest from America's Turf Authority Daily Racing Form, follow on Twitter at DRF Inside Post. That's it for this week. Best of luck when your horses break out of the gate.